We serial killers. We are your sons. We are your husbands. We are everywhere. You may have heard that before. Ted Bundy said that. One of the most infamous serial killers of all time. Definitely one of the most notable ones. Now, he said this on his death row, right? The last years of his life. He was being interviewed by the FBI, helping to make profiles on other serial killers. But today I want to talk about the 5 ways to spot a serial killer, right? As Ted Bundy said, they're your husbands, right? Look at BTK, Dennis Rader. He was a husband, a loving husband. He's involved in church. He had children. He was a doll catcher. He was employed, right? He wasn't this antisocial guy hiding in his basement. We are your sons, right? Look at Ted Bundy. He had a mother. She had no idea that he was doing that. She didn't even, I think, was able to accept it even after he was convicted. She was like, no, my Teddy can't do that, right? So they're everywhere. Right now, they estimate that it's about 25 to 30 serial killers walking around any given time. So how do you spot a serial killer? Well, sometimes you can't. But there are some ways that you can notice in their behaviors, in their emotions, or things that they don't do. Right, and the first thing is egocentrism and a sense of superiority. Jack the Ripper believed that he could outwit the police to the point of sending taunting letters to Scotland Yard investigators. Jack the Ripper was a justice killer, you'd say, right? He said he had this vision from God that he was supposed to cleanse the streets, right? If you don't know, he killed 5 prostitutes because he was tired of the filth in the street. And one victim, it's very disgusting, but he murdered her in her own apartment. Blood splattered on the bed, on the walls, on the table, on the floor. There's a reason they call him Jack the Ripper. Right? Never called though. But these people have an air of superiority. They're like, I'm better than this prostitute. I'm better than this homo guy. So I'm going to take his life. They're very egocentric, right? Like, the world has wronged me. I'm going to get back at you. Or I've been overlooked my whole life. Now it's time for me to reign supreme over you and be the perpetrator instead of the victim anymore. All right. The second thing is absence of remorse or guilt. Joel Rifkin, convicted of killing and dismembering at least 9 women, lamented his life sentence as a tragedy, yet later bragged about having more victims than other inmates. If you notice these guys when they're catched, right, when they're in prison, they're on trial, it goes one of 2 ways, okay? Either they will be secretive, I guess is a word, or casual, right? They're nonchalant about it. They don't believe they convict, they're guilty, or they at least put this act on like, I'm not guilty. I didn't do that, right? Or they will be very proud of it, but they're never remorseful, right? Like Ted Bundy always spoke in the third person. He never convicted to commit, I have a brain fart. Never confessed to any of his crimes until he was on death row, right? He said, well, let's suppose this guy would do this and he would use this as a weapon. And what would he get off of this? Like, what sexual fantasy? He would probably be seeking this or feeling this, right? It was until the last few years of his life that he actually spoke in the first person. Actually, he's like, yeah, I did this to her. But they don't really feel remorse for it, right? In reality, they wish that they had gotten more. There's one Russian serial killer. He wanted a victim for every piece on his chessboard. He was obsessed with chess. And he was 1 short. And I don't know, maybe it really was 1 short, but they never, I think 61 pieces. So he had I think 60 bodies on him. But he wished he had done more. And they never are sorry for their crimes, except maybe a very few years and years of being in prison. They might regret what they did. Like David Berkowitz, I've talked about him before. He came to Jesus, turned his life around, and now he's very remorseful. but these people were not remorseful during their crimes. Okay, the next one is deception and manipulation. John Wayne Gacy, the clown, the Rostov cannibal, John Wayne Gacy denied killing a young man buried beneath his house, insisting he would have remembered committing such crimes. Right? So they're very deceptive, they're very manipulative. John Wayne Gacy denied. He said, I'm pretty sure I would have remembered doing these acts you said I did. So, I mean, it's very hard to realize, like, you think that growing up in some homes like Ted Bundy did, you would have a more Christian, a more happy house, right? Ted Bundy grew up in summer camps. He grew up going to church, loving family, but yet he was able to have this mask for years. He was able to trick society. And like one guy, his friend said, he's the guy you want your sister to marry. So serial killers are very, very good at hiding their true identities. And they will always assert themselves in safe environments, right? The Zodiac killer, suspected killer, Zodiac killer, Arthur Allen Lee, was a school teacher, right? He gained the trust of a family, and he would take them to the lake, to carnivals, to the racetrack. He loved racing, being with them all the time. Excuse me. Dennis Rader, BTK, was in church, right? He was very involved in church, had his family. They're very good at deceiving people, right? It's not the obvious people you think, okay? It's the nice people. It's the very involved in church, the school teachers. They're very good at deceiving you. They're very good at manipulating you to do what they want, right? Ted Bundy would drop his keys. He would pretend to be a police officer, right? And we would drop his keys. He'd be injured, using crutches. So, hey, can you please pick my key? I can't really reach down. Or he'd pretend to be a police officer saying, hey, somebody tried to break into your car. I need to come down to the headquarters and maybe identify him, press charges, whatnot, right? So, psychopaths are very good at hiding what they really are, right? I mean, Ted Bundy had a whole relationship with Liz. I forget what his wife's name was, but she was the witness for the defense. And he married her literally during her testimony, had a child with her on death row, and still she wouldn't believe he was guilty. They really are good at maintaining their identity, right? Whether it be false or true. It amazes me. Like, these guys can literally be killing 30, 40 women, sometimes hundreds, and still go to church on Sunday, still help their daughter with their art project. There's no limits to their capabilities. And the next one, what I talked about before, is lack of empathy, right? Andrei Chikatilo, the Rostov cannibal, stated that screams, blood, and agony gave him relief and pleasure. Like I've said before, some serial killers, they're born this way. Like, it's just no escaping it. They're just, I won't say they're destined to do it, but it's just in their DNA. And some were kind of just made that way by society, right? They were constantly overlooked. They were constantly bullied. And that made them escape to their fantasy world, right? Jeffrey Dahmer, guy grosses me out. The one guy I can't stand. But he was stuck in his fantasy world, right? He would have these fantasies of harming men and having sex with them. And the first guy he brought home, was just after high school, that he realized the guy wasn't gay. He's like, I don't care. I'm gonna have sex with this guy anyway. So then he got a dumbbell, knocked him over the head. At that point, he lost all reality. He had no sympathy for humankind. He just wanted what he had. He was tired of being frustrated. So he went after it. I mean, some of these killers will torture their victims for hours, you don't do it without lack of empathy, okay? You have become totally devoid, and I believe it is demon possession, okay? These demons got a hold of these people and completely took away their humanity, their love, their compassion, and made them devoid. So I think this is one of the most common traits of serial killers, right? They have no emotions, but yet they have emotion at the same times, right? They're able to go back to talk about deception and manipulation. David Berkowitz was a postal worker. He had buddies he hung out with, okay? He was in the army. Dahmer had a job. Ted Bundy had a job. Ed Gein had a job. Dennis Rader had a job. They're able to be friendly, be the leader in church, yet at nighttime go and take somebody's life and torture them all morning, all night. They're very manipulative. They're able to turn emotions off and never turn back on. Right? And then the last sign of a serial killer is shallow emotions. Rudolph Pleel compared murder to playing cards and claimed he had a lot of fun. Like, how do you compare murder to had a lot of fun? It is, like I said, they're able to deflect their human empathy and emotions. Because at this point, the killer is not born overnight, okay? You don't just wake up and become one. Over years, they've been shut away from reality and put into this fantasy world, right? David Berkowitz, the son of Sam, would hide under his bed in his closet in the darkness for hours and hours. He said that the desire for darkness was demonic. This is what he said. This is not my opinion. This is what he said. And that opened him up to Satanism, right? He joined a cult when he came back from the army. And he really just got pissed off by being constantly rejected by girls. At one point, he got cheated on when he was in a mild relationship. Ted Bundy had a bunch of shallow relationships. He had no problem getting a girl, but he never could keep her. He wasn't capable of loving someone. When he was with Liz, he said he would not be able to love her, to go on dates, to cook, to clean. But he had these random episodes, I guess you say, of where he's like, I gotta clean. So he'd clean the whole house. He'd cook her dinner. He'd buy her flowers, buy her chocolates, whatever. And he said he had to maintain this perfect identity of Ted. He had to keep his facade of happy and cool, right? This loving, charming man. And so he did these random fits of ways he just would do that. And so, like I said, you really don't know who a serial killer could be. It could be your brother, it could be the supermarket clerk. You don't know. You truly don't. Because, I mean, Ted Bundy went on for decades, right? Dennis Rader went on for decades. Berkowitz went a whole year and he turned himself in, basically. He got caught, right? He purposely made where police would find him by getting that parking ticket. It's truly frightening to see the signs of how these people become devoid. But I believe a lot of these people could have been helped if they had just had somebody loving, somebody kind. If somebody had just been a father's figure to them and truly known what was wrong with them and got them help instead of ignoring it for years and years, letting that anger fester inside of them, right? So that's what I also say to you, be kinder to people in your life, okay? You never know what somebody's going through, and it may be the tipping point that makes them become Ted Bundy or David Berkowitz, because they're just tired of being hurt by society. They're tired of being looked over. So be nicer to people, right? Be kinder, show some love, show some kindness, okay? Because everybody's facing a battle. Everybody's facing employment issues, family issues, relationship issues. You never know what somebody's going through. So just a smile, just a hug, a compliment to a stranger can go a very long way. I promise you. That's it for today. Make sure you're staying tuned because I got a lot of exciting content coming up. Talking about the psychology behind killers, their victimology, what they did. So make sure you're sticking around. make sure you're watching his videos, and make sure you're subscribed. Until next time, I love you guys. God bless, and stay alert.